Hello and welcome to the show, YouTube friends. Drop a comment in the chat and hit the like and subscribe buttons as we dive into all the weekend's action. Let's go. Great show today, everybody, as we take a look back at some of the weekend's fixtures and crazy results. It has been a wild weekend, and I've brought some friends along with me so that you can enjoy the ride. I've got Nigel Reo-Coker and Heath Pearce joining me, so sit back, relax, and let us entertain you. Qué Golazo begins right now. Welcome along, everybody. Enjoy with my good friends Heath Pearce and Nigel Reo-Coker. We are looking back at the weekend's results and some crazy fixtures. Nigel Reo-Coker, I know you were glued to your TV, and I can only imagine, my partner in crime, that you saw some unbelievable games and some crazy results like I did.
Oh, it was some fantastic games. Honestly, I'll probably say my two favorite was obviously the AC Milan Napoli game and also the Madrid Derby. I was watching them both on the two separate devices, and it was fantastic. I won't go into greater detail how I managed to accomplish that, but I accomplished it, and it was worth it.
Heath Pearce, welcome to the show, man. It's so great to see you. It's been a while, but we love you. We love watching the pod with you and Jimmy, and of course, we know that you guys are active around US soccer. How on earth did we manage to get you to transfer into this show?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Des just asked me, this is the result of having 3 children, and this is the escape and break I get over the weekend, is to be able to have the excuse to put the TV on. Because, when it's around the U.S. national team, I get less windows. But when we're talking about the global game, I get to own the main TV in the house for an entire weekend, which is a whole different level of watching, as Nigel talked about. You got to have multi devices going. You got to own all the devices if you want to get a good look at the games. But it was an amazing weekend of matches.
Well, a shout out to you, Chuck Davies, and of course, Jimmy Conrad, for what you're doing in Soccer We Trust. We appreciate you greatly. But let's get stuck into it, boys. Serie A action will start right there. We're going to go across most of the divisions, if not all of the divisions, if we have time today. But we got to start off with a match that just wrapped up moments ago. It was AC Milan going down by a goal, obviously losing 2-1 against Napoli. 54th minute, Politano gets the penalty kick, scores it. 69 minutes, Olivier Giroud scores to make it 1-1, and then Simeone winning the game. Nigel, it was an interesting game, but a big result for Napoli, and one that you predicted before the weekend.
Yes, Ian. Say it again. I predicted it, correct? Oh, what a game! What a game! It was a tough one to get into because it took time. But when I look at that game again, when you analyze overall, it was a game where you could see both teams have respect for each other, and they really do look at each other as true title contenders. And it was a game that neither side wanted to win. You'd have to say that AC Milan had the better of the first half, really and truly. Napoli stayed in the game, being the away team. But overall, that win for Napoli is a massive confidence booster. I think that really puts a lot of belief in them to play one of the main rivals for the Serie A title, to beat them at their home ground, but to get the job done. It was a real professional performance by Napoli, going 1-0 up. Yes, you get level pegged back by Milan, and Milan are at home. You think the momentum's going to be with Milan, but to show that character again by Napoli and to get that winning goal, what an absolute game. And for me, I'm a big fan of, you can call him Caladonna or Quicha Qualaskeli, as we pronounce it. If I butchered it, I don't care. The player is absolutely sensational. One of the hot properties of European and world football. I'm sure, Ian, there's probably 20 to 30 scouts at every game he plays now for Napoli. What a player. And let's not forget, this is Napoli getting the result without their star striker, who's currently injured at the moment, Usman. And is it Usman?
Osimhen.
Yeah,
Osimhen. I forgot the men at the end. Sorry.
Right, you get away with it because you mispronounce everybody's name, so you get away with it.
I know, it's all right. It's all right. But anyway, with Osimhen not being there, that is a big, big win. And I really think that's a statement win for Napoli, and that's going to put a lot of confidence in that dressing room.
Yeah, there was a few things that I liked about this one. Obviously, I think Nigel's spot on, and it took a while to get going. AC Milan, actually, I heard a stat at halftime, and I don't want to butcher the stat, but I believe it was the first time in a half that Napoli were outpossessed in the first half of a game. And obviously, you expect them to have a lot of attack and a lot of flow in their attack, and it took them a while to get going. And then, obviously, with Cholito coming in the second half, changed the way in which they had verticality against AC Milan. But unbelievable goals. Shout out to Serginho Dest, who got thrown into the fire to give up a penalty right at the end. And it's the first time I've seen him with his head down. It's the first time I've seen him in a while get significant minutes. So, but just an unbelievable match by the end there, just in terms of the two-way nature of it. But Napoli are so good, and you can see the decisions they made were the difference, and the depth they have. When you look at Napoli being a contender every year, we talk about, do they have the depth? Do they have the depth? Can they be fit enough? And can they rely on players to contribute deeper? Without Osimhen, you expected them to fall off, but they were able to get a result in this one. It was really impressive.
Heath, how do you feel that's going to affect Dest? Obviously, he's just come on, and then he gives a penalty away to obviously give Napoli the lead. How do you think that's really going to affect him? He's a young lad still, learning his trade. He's come from Barcelona to Milan, still trying to get into that starting lineup in a World Cup year. How do you think that's going to really affect him?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, and you know what it's like going into international break. It can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? This could be the thing that brings them back together. We've seen Christian Pulisic in the past in tough times kind of rally around his compatriots to sort of find his rhythm and form again. People that care a little bit more, right? When he's in that locker room, he's just another guy. No one cares about Serginho Dest. In fact, they're probably saying, this guy's overrated. I mean, how is he coming from Barcelona? Yeah, he's got good feet. I mean, show me more. And so it's probably going to shake him there. And the worst part is now he's got to leave for a couple of weeks to be able to come back in. He probably wants to be in that training ground, proving himself to sort of right the wrongs, right? When you make a mistake like that, you just want to play your next match as quick as possible to show that you have the quality. But this could give him a little bit of a break to clear his head and come back strong again. But it's certainly going to have some sort of effect because he's wanting to come in and prove that he's got the quality, that they made a right move for him, that he should be competing for more minutes. And to make a mistake like that we've all made in our careers, right? You make that mistake where you lean out 1 second. The game happens so quick now that he's called for it. And you can't get away with anything with VAR now. So it's going to have some sort of effect. I'm hoping that the national team break will help it on the back end, though.
Everybody's watching Qué Golazo. We are live. It is Heath Pearce, Nigel Rio-Coker, and myself, Ian Joy. We're discussing Milan's defeat, the first defeat of the season for the champions against Napoli, who are top of the table in Serie A. I guess the question I would have for you guys, as we want everybody's comments also on this question, did the best team win in this game? Because I've got a feeling, Nigel, you feel that maybe Maignan could have done better on the penalty kick and probably should have saved it. So at the end of the day, was it a fair result that Napoli actually won this one, or could you have seen this one maybe being a draw, where I think was probably the fairer result?
I think a draw definitely would have been the fair result, Ian, on reflection of that game. But again, I think that you've still got to give credit to Napoli because being away from home plays a part. You know, going to San Siro and trying to...
Packed house, too. It was a packed house.
It's
not
a
always
packed house
there.
And it was packed because everyone knew the importance of this game because people were seeing the rise of Napoli, which no one expected. They're doing fantastically well in Serie A, but also doing so well in the Champions League. So that's what got the crowd going and the crowd there to see if they're real title contenders. So you know what it's like. You both know what it's like when you play away from home in games of that magnitude. You're not going to dominate possession. You're not going to always have all the chances. But when the chances came, when it came to being clinical, taking those opportunities, that is what Napoli did today. And you have to give credit to a team that does that. That's great coaching, great attitude, and great application by the players. Because on the other hand, we can talk about another game, just to go off topic slightly. You look at Atalanta today versus Roma. Roma came alive after Atalanta went 1-0 up. And Roma had the better chances where you would have said that on any other day, that could have finished 3 or 4-1 to Roma. If you don't take the chances when they come, if you're not clinical and you don't have that bite, you're going to lose games. And I think you got to give credit to Napoli because for me, I think they showed that bite being away from home to one of the real serious contenders for the Serie A title.
HP?
Yeah, I agree. And when you're talking about Roma, that's a game of obviously they've been critical of Tammy Abraham, right? Or I say they, but talking about Jose Mourinho, he gets sent off in a while, and what I think was a pretty fair call, to be honest. But he just lost it, entered the pitch, gets sent off, and it's one of those things where I don't remember what I don't know the exact stat again. It's somewhere in this run of show. 21 shots for Roma, 0 goals. Tammy was wasteful, had that breakaway that you can see. When he's in form, when you look back to last year and he was carrying the team, Roma, for a lot of those periods, and you said, man, he just need a few pieces around him and this team could be a title contender. You can see the form that he's in where he's second-guessing himself in and around the goal. But it can't be all on him. But he's certainly one that when he's in form, Roma are a much better team. And he was wasteful, and he's been wasteful the last few matches and in a little bit of a bump in form right now.
Yeah, it's a great point to make. And of course, we must not forget it was a youngster that won the game for Atalanta. We're discussing Roma against Atalanta here on Qué Golazo. Scalvini with the winning goal, the 18-year-old with a fabulous finish from the top of the box, his first goal of the season. Obviously, going into the game, Nigel, it was not necessarily perfect preparation for Roma. Dybala gets injured in the warm-up. He misses out on the game. They're forced to make a replacement. I think it's Matic who stepped into the starting 11. And then 5 minutes into the game, didn't exactly work out perfectly for Atalanta either. The goalkeeper Musso went down with an injury. It was a controversial game to say the least, but You'd have to say that Roma's poor finishing was the reason why this game ended 1-0 to Atalanta, because Roma, including Tammy, your mate, had a big chance in that game.
Wow, Ian, what you have to throw him under the bus like that for? He's a young kid.
Should have scored.
He knows he missed the chance, Ian. Okay, he knows it. Yeah, he should have scored. He knows he should have scored. He set good standards since he's been there, and that was a great opportunity. But they had so many really good chances, Roma. So many good opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net. Today, they were missing that bite. And that's what happens. You know, that's the reality of the game that we love so much, especially at the highest level in Europe. If you don't take the opportunities, you're going to get punished. And that's what happened to Roma today. And obviously, Diablo not being able to play also makes a big, big difference, because he's been a big part of this Roma team since he's been there. He's been that kind of magician, that catalyst, that one that can kind of open the door. And you probably say he's a lot more clinical. And I think that he was missing today. Matic was the same old Matic that I've seen, nothing much really. And it kind of makes them a lot more solid defensively, but not a lot more creative in the attacking sense. And I think that overall, Mourinho will be definitely disappointed with that, because there was opportunity there for Roma to get a result. And I think that when you look at Atalanta, it was a good away performance again, professional performance. Players ran their socks off. They did the high press. They won the ball well. They look a lot more solid defensively. And I think what's helped them as well is, like you said, Ian, as well, not being involved in European competition right in this season will be a big part of their success, of how far they can push this title run.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And producer Des, if we could throw that league table back up on the screen, I would love to just touch on that, just because of Atalanta. When you look at the teams right now, including Udinese, who are sitting near the top, it's an unbelievable sort of route. When we talk about Juventus' form, when we talk about Atalanta, you look at last year and you say, okay, they're going to settle into maybe falling outside of Europe moving forward when you look at the quality of the teams. But when you have a Lazio that's still in going punch for punch with everybody 7 matches into the season, Udinese, who are unbeaten, who've won their last 5, actually, unbeaten in 6, Atalanta also overperforming how you expect them to. For both of you, do you think this is a good thing for the big clubs to have these other clubs floating near the top? That makes it tight for everyone, meaning everyone's giving up points along the way? Or do you think that smells trouble for a Juventus or an Inter Milan, who haven't been great to start the season?
I'll jump in here, Nigel, before you get a word on this one. I think it's great for the league. And I must admit, Serie A has been one of the most interesting leagues to follow in recent years because of how competitive it is at the top of the table. And there's a lot of drama going around Serie A right now. We also recognize there's a lot of money being spent as well. I think they're the second highest spenders in this recent transfer window, almost $1 billion. It was like 750 million euros that was spent, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but most of that was Monza signings, right? They spent all the money.
All illegal money. No, yeah. Listen, I think that it's great for the league in general because the talking points, the players, the superstars, and me and Nigel have touched upon this in previous shows. A lot of the younger players are starting to see Serie A as an opportunity to get minutes, to produce a platform where they can showcase their talent and potentially get a bigger move. So I'm enjoying watching Serie A. I mean, obviously the coverage on CBS and Paramount Plus is top class, and I love listening to the group that Poppy Miller has on her show, and they always live and breathe the league. So I'm learning a lot every time I watch it. But you know, following Italian football pretty much all my life, I love to see how competitive it is. I didn't like it when it was just Juventus winning every single year. It was a bit frustrating to watch because there wasn't that competition coming. But now if you look at it, my favorites to win it this year was either Milan or Inter. Both of those teams now are almost runs right now. And you'd have to say that some of the teams that nobody put money on ahead of this campaign are favorites. Napoli doing well, Atalanta doing well. I mean, it's starting to turn into this competition where we're going to see maybe a Leicester City run that someone crazy is going to win Serie A. Nigel, what do you think?
I think you're right. I think for me, it goes to my character. I'm very competitive. So when you see that happening to a league, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to watch. I think for any neutral, when you look at that, it's great. Like Ian said, you got tired of Juventus winning it all the time. It makes it such good for the neutral fan to watch, to see these teams coming out. And these teams are coming out. They all got different gems and different superstars and players that they've recruited from over Europe, but they're building something great. And again, we talked about Atalanta and how well they're doing, and Napoli. We've got to put Udinese in there. You know, they've started up some fantastically well so far. They're shocking a lot of people. And I think with these guys winning against the old guard, the sense of the Juventus losing, the Inter Milan's losing, the AC Milan's losing games, it just makes it so much more interesting. And it put these big clubs on the edge, you know. And the thing like we know about football is you have to continue to evolve. You can't sit on your morals. There's some clubs who have such a fantastic structure in place that it works year in, year out. There's a consistency. And some of these clubs, they might come for 4 or 5 years and then vanish. No, football, you have to continually to want to evolve in the right ways. And that's recruitment, manager, structure of your club, what you want to do. But I really think it's great. And it just makes it more exciting to watch that league.
Hey, Heath, before I jump into Mourinho's post-game comments, I want to get your opinion on this after what Nigel's just mentioned right there. You follow closely the finances around the beautiful game. In Italy in general, we're starting to see ownership groups, American ownership groups, Asian ownership groups. There's a lot of money, and people are seeing Serie A as a possibility to make money, but also enjoy the beautiful game. Do you think that's only helping the league, that they're getting these crazy owners come over? And of course, we've got the Berlusconi story as well, which is always interesting. But do you think that's really helping the league and pushing it to the forefront once again?
I think it will. I mean, the biggest restriction that they've had in the past is that 99% of the teams don't own their stadiums, right? Which is a giant revenue driver. If you're an investor coming in, whether domestically or internationally, that's where you drive a lot of your revenue, match day revenue, being able to use the stadium for multi-use, have that place booked out, you know, throughout the entire year. Most of those are city owned, so they're paying rent, and so you lose a lot of that. But I think there's now this ability, and ownership groups are looking at it as saying, hey, maybe there is an opportunity to build a new stadium somewhere or something that's going to drive, you know, a lot of, I mean, for the owners, it's a purely capitalistic move that's going to drive money for their shareholders. But for the game in itself, it's going to continue to push it forward. And this is actually an interesting thing. And the three of us have all experienced it. The facilities, Nigel, in North America at all Major League Soccer clubs compared to what you'll have at a Serie A club in the bottom half of the table is night and day. Right? There are a lot of clubs, like you said, grounded in history that have been around a long time, that have a way of working, but their finances aren't huge. They're stuck in an old generation in terms of facilities and infrastructure and all these things that sometimes breathing in a little bit of investment the right way can improve the quality of the player you can bring in, improve the quality of the environment that you're in. And so, I mean, would love just to take on just Nigel, especially your experiences of what sort of modernizing a club can be like. Obviously, there's a lot of sensitivity around modernizing a club right now, especially in England and things like that don't necessarily need to be modernized. But in a lot of clubs around Europe, they are still sort of looking for that next generation of like, what's the 2.0 or the 3.0 version that gets you up to the way the game is being played in 2022.
Yeah,
I think, Heath, with that though, it's a difficult. It's not difficult, but it's subjective, because I think sometimes some clubs, as long as you've got good enough facilities for professionals to be there, that's all you need. Because sometimes not having the super luxuries of some of the best training grounds in the world, that breeds a great desire to the young kids you're breeding through the academy. So they're coming from not having the great super luxuries, and that gives them that extra motivation to perform, to get to the first team, to maybe get themselves on the shopping window and be sold to get to the so-called bigger clubs where they got that luxury. And they have that extra bit of character and growth because they know what it's like to be at the bottom. They know what it's like to play at a simple training ground. I had that in my experience when I came through at Wimbledon. We used to train pretty much in a public park. We used to have some dog poo sometimes on a first team pitch.
But you quickly went to West Ham though. You quickly
I went to West Ham. Like... West Ham wasn't that much better. West Ham wasn't that much better. We just had a bit of an indoor facility at that point. Then from there, you go to Aston Villa when they have a brand new training ground, so you see it. But it does breed that. And I think if you approach it in the right way, you can make it work. But I just think overall in general, when we talk about Italian football, we've got to look at, for me, how the mighty have fallen. And like you just said, just to lead to that, Heath, look at Juventus. They probably got the best facilities in Italy, the fantastic new stadium. But if you're not performing and you're not winning, and they've got the money as well, like Ian's showing there, but if you're not performing, you're not winning, fans won't go to your game, and your beautiful stadium in Italy, the best in Italy, people ain't turning up. And that's what it is. So you got to look at that kind of aspect, and we can talk about how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that newly named segment. Thank you to our producer, Des Norris, for that one there. But before we wrap up Roma, Atalanta, of course, Roma going down by a goal to nil by the youngster, 18-year-old Scalvini with the winning goal. There was an interesting comment from Mourinho that came out. I'm just going to read it to you now real quickly. This was a game we should have won easily. We didn't dominate Monza or Cremonese like we did Atalanta. There was a very clear penalty. I have to change my advice to my players and tell them to dive like a clown as if they're diving into a pool. Nigel, me and you were texting real quickly before we move on to Juve, but there was a few like crazy dives in that game.
Oh, mate, the worst one was the one that we text, because obviously they I can't remember the two players, but obviously they were pulling each other's shirts, and then the Roma player gets into the box, finally through, and then he just dives. No touch, no contact around him. It is just pure embarrassing. It's the worst theatrics I have seen in football in so long, because it's just that embarrassing that he prolongs it and then there's no contact and he dives so late. It was just
Zaniolo,
laughable.
you're talking about Zaniolo.
Yeah, it was embarrassing. We had to text each other and start laughing. Like this, it was just embarrassing. Do
you think the behavior has gotten better with VAR, knowing that, like, hey, we're all watching, we're gonna watch it over and over again to see how stupid and foolish you look?
Do you know what, Heath? That's a very good point, because I say to myself, and I don't want to say it because obviously we're all ex-players, is it a players becoming that much more stupid? Because let's be real, they watch football, they know VAR's there. Why are you arguing with the referee now? They know the situation and the protocol. Everything you do now, they have so many cameras all over the place. It wasn't like when we played, where you could do a lot more of the dark arts, and unless the referee saw it, you're getting away with it. I just don't understand why players do some of the dumb things we are seeing when there's cameras everywhere.
Nigel, it was not a great weekend for video review in Serie, and it hasn't been a good couple of weeks for video review in Serie. Obviously, they need to make certain changes. Christina Unkel was on the Paramount Plus show today. I thought that was a great advantage to even the commentators listening to Christina, she was sitting next to Matteo Andre on the call, and I thought it was important to have her input in certain calls in the game because, clearly some leagues do video review better than others, right? We got to move ahead because we have a new segment. The segment is called How the Mighty Have Fallen. We're going to keep this up because there's a lot of big clubs who are struggling right now. A few more so than Juventus, who went down by a goal to nil, to Monza, who pick up their first Serie A victory in their history. Thanks to Gittia, I believe it is, who scored the goal on the 74th minute. Red card to Di Maria in the 40th minute there. Heath Pierce, it was an interesting weekend for Juventus, and the fans seem to be going nuts. They want Allegri out.
Yeah, Monza with their first ever win, and against Juventus is a massive thing. Their first ever Serie A win, I should say, to clarify that. It's their first one of the year, but it's also their first ever Serie A win, and that's a massive one for them. But when I look at this Juventus, there's still so much interconnectivity to last year. Yes, they went on a late run to be able to get into Champions League and finish the season on a decent note, but this is not a Juventus side that's going to compete for a trophy, or at least for winning the league in Serie A this year. They look disjointed, the quality of the passing. It just seems like everyone's on different pages. When you think about that and you think about where they're going to go, and yes, I know that they have money in theory, but all the way back to the Ronaldo era ending, a lot of it was about shedding weight, right? And they're being a little bit smarter about how they spend their money and things like that, but it hasn't seemed to come together into being a group that's competing for anything. Even when I looked at the end of the game, and yes, I believe it was Juventus playing down a man at some point in that game, or no?
Di Maria got sent off.
Di Maria got sent off. So they're playing down for a long period of it. But everything was still on the counter. When I think about Juventus in their prime, down a man for 45 minutes, they're still going to control possession. Against the Monza, they're going to still feel like that game is on equal footing. And for long periods, and at times, you could feel that Juventus were down a man. You could feel that Juventus were sort of up against it, though they weren't giving up a ton of chances. They didn't have that sort of confidence that we're Juventus. We dictate play. You could take two players off the field, and we're still going to be able to run on Monza. That's no disrespect to Monza, but for them to get their first ever Serie A win in a game like this, it leaves me reason for concern for this Juventus side, knowing that there's a lot of teams getting early points in the season that are showing beyond just a flash in terms of their form right now, that they might be able to keep going and push some of these top teams maybe out of the top four.
Yeah, Heath, you made some great points there. And I think for me, I'm just going to simplify it. Juventus right now are a hot mess. And I think even now when you look at the performances, it is seeming to me that the players are losing confidence in the manager himself as well. And obviously, we know that there's a trend going on now for obviously the manager to be kicked out. I don't know how much of a financial implication that decision will be to the board to be able to sack him. But it's better for me, I would say, if you're Juventus right now, it's sooner than later. Because once those Juventus faithful fans start turning on the team and turning on the manager, it's going to be a horrible place to be in. And it's going to be horrible for the players to perform, because the players are not going to want to play or perform under that kind of atmosphere and those circumstances. You know, football has changed and the generation has changed, you know, and it's going to be very difficult. You're looking at a different generation. Can they handle the pressure when the fans turn on you and the fans turn on the manager and nothing gets done? So you got to look at the situation right now, and it's a hot mess. They really don't have a good team on paper, but they're not performing like a good team. They're not performing like a collective, and they are still very, very just all over the place. And we see this picture here where they're facing the fans and they're facing the music, and look at the faces there. You know, the players just look completely dejected, and they have to face what the fans are saying. And obviously, I'm sure there was a lot of abuse going on there. You know, we've seen it before.
Go ahead.
Ian, let me ask you this question on this, because I'm assuming in their locker room, right? And actually, you can both answer this if you got a comment on it. They are competing for the Scudetto when they started the season, right?
That's expected, right? Wearing that shirt.
Yeah, and now you're looking at them and thinking like they might not even finish in a Champions League spot this year, right? And the same was last year. There was large portions that they were sort of pretty deep and never really in the title race. But this year in particular, you would think that the Scudetto is the first one, and now that feels like maybe you're not even thinking about that. You're kind of lowering, not necessarily the expectations, but maybe you're thinking game to game on how we're going to just stay in a Champions League spot.
Yeah, listen, it's a great point. And I think to Nigel, what you had mentioned, I think what the financial implications would be, it's a €9 million a year salary for Allegri. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, producer Des, maybe you can look up this one. I think it's 9 point something million. Maybe you know this one, Heath, if you make it to the knockout stages in the Champions League. So, you know, is there that added benefit to getting rid of a manager and bringing somebody else in to try and rejuvenate the squad so that they get to the knockout stages in the Champions League? Or do you, keep with the coach and stick with the plan? There was a great comment in the post game today from the CEO, Arriva Bene, I believe his name is, and he had mentioned how, no, forget this Allegri out. It's not happening. This is a 4-year project we've got with Juventus, with Allegri. We are sticking by our man, and you better believe it. But the Juve fans were not happy whatsoever. There was a great comment from the Juve fans. I was looking up because I'm a bit weird like that after the games. I like to see all the dirt. And the fans... One of the fans had said, "We are watching the failure of a football club's project. It is a failure on and off the field," wrote one of the supporters. And I want to ask all the people out there who are viewing as well, let us know in the comments what you think about the state of Juventus Football Club. Do you think Allegri should be fired? Do you think he should stay? I mean, Heath Pierce, I mean, it's kind of a crazy situation.
A point. It's $1 million US per point in the Champions League group stage and $9 million to qualify for the knockout round. So if you really think about what it takes to get to the knockout rounds, to the group stages, it's closing in on double that between the group stages. So close to 20 million US you're probably looking at, give or take a couple of million. It's a significant drop in what you're expecting, especially if you've got a huge wage bill.
Yeah. You know what the thing is for me though, guys? I just want to say this. I think there's a difference if you've got a project and you can see that the performances are there and it's just one or two things missing. But when you've got a project and the players are not performing and it looks like they're lacking confidence, you can't say, oh, we've got a project, we've got to stick with it. No, you have a problem. You have a problem where somewhere along the line now, maybe the manager has lost the dressing room.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Post Calciopoli, that was a project. Coming up, multiple divisions, rebuilding, working with the finance. That's a project. Now, their project of winning 10 in a row, that was a project. But then now you have to rebuild. And like Nigel said early on in the show, you have these institutions that can figure it out every year. But if you ask somebody that's at a club, they'll say, no, we're way different than last year. We might not see to the naked eye what the differences are, but you have to evolve. You have to iterate with the modern game, the way it's going to be different, where you're going to get your points. Data now has changed the way in which you build teams and you analyze projects. So yeah, I agree. It's a problem, not a project.
Listen, I'm going to just add the last word on Juventus before we move on to congratulate Monza on their first victory, because it was pretty special for them. A great occasion. And nobody's going to talk about it because obviously what's happening at Juventus. But there's clearly a lack of spirit, team spirit. There's a lack of chemistry. Something's not quite right at the football club. And Nigel, you touched upon it and you both make fantastic points about Juve. This is a big term project for them, so to say. However, it's not working right now. And how long do you let that process go? I mean, they're sitting mid-table in Serie A right now, Juventus. That's simply not good enough. And as Nigel touched upon at the top of the show, Juventus, it's in their DNA. They should be challenging for titles. The last point I'm going to make...
Ian, wait. 40 seasons in Serie B Monza have spent without a promotion up until this year. 40 seasons. I don't think it's consecutive, but 40 seasons. They've tried to get to the league, and for their first ever win to be against the giant Juventus, I think it's pretty special.
It's amazing. It's absolutely insane. So congratulations to Monza from all of us at Qué Golazo. And again, everybody out there who's watching on Qué Golazo, please let us know in your comments what you think what's happening at Juventus Football Club, but also let us know what you think about Allegri. And just celebrate the glory for Monza as well, because it was a terrific victory. Juve up next for them is a game against Bologna after the international break at home, and that clearly should be a must-win game for Allegri. Earlier on, the early kickoff in Serie A today was Udinese against Inter Milan. We touched upon it at the top of the show there. Udinese deserve a lot more credit than they're getting. They went top of the table with that win because of the early kickoff. It was a terrific performance. They have won 5 Serie A games in a row right now, scored 13 goals and led only 3. Our team's underestimating Udinese, Heath, do you think?
Probably not at the moment, right? They've won 5 in a row, so you have to take them serious. But if you go back to the start of the season when they took a real beating by AC Milan, you saw a very different Udinese side. Then they win against Salernitana. They go down a man. They grind out, I think it was a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw to be able to sort of come out of that. And you know when you fight together and you get something, and yes, it's Salernitana, but again, playing down for long periods and finding a little hope has sort of kicked them off onto this 5-game winning streak. And so I think teams, if they were underestimating even going into this weekend, you now have to consider them. Whether they have the juice to go a full season, that was always the question with Napoli in years past, where they're up at the top until 3 quarters through, and then it's 2-3 weeks because the league is so tight that somebody runs away with it from you. But they certainly deserve the respect at the moment, and I wouldn't want to be playing with them if I was anybody in Serie A right now.
Just to add to what Heath said there, you're 100% right. And I think the word I look for is character. You look at the first 2 results, like Heath just said, and then when you get a win like this against Inter Milan, this is a statement win. And this is the win that lets people say, okay, they're top of the league. They're top of the league for a reason, because they didn't go through those 2 results earlier on and continue to crumble or be inconsistent. They took those 2 kind of results and they built greater character, and to be on this great run and to have a statement win against Inter Milan like that, that is when people are really going to start paying attention. I definitely think that people are going to start showing Udinese a lot more respect and realizing that these guys are serious when it comes to the running for the Serie A.
Yeah, Inter find himself in 7th place in Serie A because of this result, and that's why we're doing this segment. I mean, what on earth is going on with Inter Milan right now? Still no Lukaku. He's still injured, so he's not back ready to go. They took 2 players off after 30 minutes, which seems like it was a crazy idea from Inzaghi. Is he living on thin ice here? I mean, what exactly is going wrong with Inter Milan, Nigel?
It's a difficult one because you'd expect so much from them. You know, you look at the squad, and then obviously they've got Romelu Lukaku back, who you thought would be the real catalyst for this season to get them goals and everything. And it's just not seemed to be working right now. I don't know whether it's just the pressure sometimes that managers feel, and within the moment they make rash decisions, and whether that's something we could say that Inzaghi did today. But again, we just talked about Juventus. When you talk about Inter Milan, there's a certain level of expectancy when you put on that shirt. There's always a target on your back when things don't go right or you don't get the results. And you would have to say that Inzaghi really is another manager that's probably going to be on thin ice right now currently, because he has the squad, he has the players.
We clearly want somebody fired from Serie A, don't we?
But I will tell you, when they come back from international break, they've got Roma, and then they've got Barcelona twice, that it is not going to get easier for them right now. And so they are going, if there is a period of time that he needs to withstand to show that they could punch back or fight back or find their footing somewhere in the season, it is now. This break is obviously, if you're from a manager standpoint, you want to have as many players around as possible. You know, at a big club like that, there's like 4 guys left, you know, and he's just training 4 guys. They're playing boxes of some kind. But in the smaller clubs, they get to train. The small clubs in the league are training every day because those players aren't necessarily an international break. And so it's not great for a coach or a team that wants to go through that. But for the players, that can be a nice break for them to go away from a tough time like this. But it's not looking good. I mean, they've already lost to, you know, it's weird when you have a league when you're a giant club, you always hear the two things. It's not about playing against the other giants, right? It's about winning all the other games. And then you ask somebody else, you're like, no, it's about getting points off the other teams that establish you, because the other games don't matter. And so you're seeing that where they're giving up points against everybody. At a certain point, they're going to have to win against somebody. They're going to have to either take down their rivals at the top of the table and steal points from them, or they're going to have to run clean through the other 14 clubs in the league right now. And they've already given up points to AC Milan. They've given up, they lost to AC Milan. They lost to Lazio already this year. So it's not a great start to the season. The only hope is that there's a lot of teams sitting at the top of the table right now, and it's really thick in the first 7-8 positions that could buy them a little bit of time, knowing that people are going to be interchanging points throughout in the next few months.
Well, let me tell you, Heath Pierce, the next two fixtures are against Roma in Serie A at home, and then Barcelona at home in the Champions League. And that must be a must-win game for Inter. Otherwise, they could potentially find themselves out of the Champions League knockout stages. Matt Osmond, I think Inzaghi deserves patience. His players clearly respect him. They're just going through a rough patch. We can say that about many teams who have been struggling, but how the mighty have fallen moves to the Bundesliga. Augsburg beating Bayern Munich this weekend by 1-0. Nigel Reo-Coker, we kind of predict that something's wrong with Bayern Munich right now. And
I'm just going to let you have the floor, Ian. You don't have to come to me, Ian. You take the floor with Bayern. You can wipe the floor with Bayern. You take the floor. I'm going to sit here and listen, because you were right. I'm
excited to get into it with Heath Pierce, because I know he spent a lot of time in the Bundesliga as well, and obviously has a clear love for the German game. But I'm finding it difficult to put into words exactly what's going on with Bayern Munich, because I don't know what's going on. We give credit to Augsburg for that victory, but Bayern Munich, Heath Pierce, 3 draws before they went into this weekend in a row in the Bundesliga. Now they've lost their first Bundesliga game in the season. It's not good times for Julian Nagelsmann. What on earth is going wrong there?
Yeah, it's weird. You know, he made that comment about Oktoberfest, about wanting to cancel it. And by the way, they went to Oktoberfest because guess what? They've got sponsors. They've got a beer sponsor. You think you could skip Oktoberfest with a big beer sponsor? It's not going to happen. You're going to show up. You're all going to smile, and deep down, it's going to be eating you alive. So they ended up going to an Oktoberfest as a team, which maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. But this is a kind of a peculiar one for me, because if you go back to the Gladbach game, right? Jan Sommer, record-breaking saves in the history of the Bundesliga to draw that game. I think it was a 1-1 game, or maybe it was 0-0. But record-breaking game. And you look at it and you go, just similar to Roma's match, you go, I mean, we had all the chances. We weren't clinical enough, or we weren't ruthless enough around in front of goal. And then it starts to linger a bit. They get a result against Inter Milan Champions League. They get a result against Barcelona in the Champions League. And so you go, okay, it's back to being the Bayern that we all know and love. And then in a game like this, there wasn't good passing, there wasn't good creative, there wasn't good execution. You start to go, well, is it just about finishing, or is there something bigger happening right now, right? Because we know that the defense can have a bad day for Bayern Munich. We know that they've had some changes. Yes, when Niklas Süle left, I thought, okay, they're going to shore this thing up, because I was never sold on his ability at the Bayern level. But Upamecano hasn't been as good as he was before he got to the club. There's just, for sure, they have the ability to make mistakes in a way that Bayern haven't, right? They are the quintessential stereotypical German engine, and it's not happening right now. And then when you look at it, you go, okay, a result could have gone this way. You look at the Jan Sommer draw with Gladbach, and you look at the results they've gotten in Champions League, you go, something's not okay. But then for Nagelsmann to come out and make that comment, you go, something's burning inside that locker room. Something is off, and it's not about results, because it hasn't been horrible, right? We've seen horrible on like every 14th year of Bayern Munich have a horrible one. And we've seen that before. And this is not that, but there's something going on in that locker room that I think maybe there's some division that might have an effect. I don't know, Ian, what's your thought?
I'm going to go for Ian Heath. I'm going to go for Ian. I'm going to say, all right, Ian, you're 100% right, because you made this point a while ago. I disagreed with you. I thought it was just a blip in the matrix, but Ian was right. There's something there. I put my hands up to it. My question to Ian is this. With what we've seen of everything, and also with even the win against Barcelona and Leroy Sané being taken off and his reaction, let me know that there is definitely something that's not right there. Bayern have a good enough squad on paper for now to be able to really be competitive. Do you think Bayern would be wrong to sack the manager and bring someone else in now with the players that they've got and the current status of high-profile managers that's still available on the market? Would Bayern be wrong to get someone to come in and rejuvenate that dressing room for some reason and bring more of a collective togetherness?
Listen, it's a great point, and I think, as ever, when Bayern Munich don't win games, even if they're drawn games, the discussion is always there to be had. Is this the right manager? Is the right man to lead this club forward? Is he someone who you can see the future with at Bayern Munich? I think Julian Nagelsmann is. I mean, he's a terrific young coach. I think he's a coach who's recognizing the importance of losing an incredible goal scorer. Whenever you take Lewandowski away from any team and those goals, you have to be able to replace them. And I don't think
weren't you excited about the idea of them maybe modernizing their style and not the reliance on a single striker to go with a false nine, maybe modernize, play a little bit more production across the front line? Or were you just like, oh man, that's 40 goals a year. You got to figure out where you're going to get them from now?
Yeah, no, I wasn't looking forward to the fact that they're going to share the goals. Share the goals, Heath. I mean, you look at what Bayern Munich are doing right now. Right? Everyone's saying the same thing to me. Bayern Munich will share the goals. They're going to come from midfield. They're going to come from the wings. They're going to come from Sadio Mane. He's not a striker. He's like someone who likes to drop off. BS, man. I'm calling absolute BS when it comes to Bayern Munich, because they are a team that notoriously through the years, and you go through the history, Heath, you know, you played against Bayern Munich, notoriously through history, they've always had a goal scorer. And notorious through history, they've always had a number 9 who's been proven in the Bundesliga. And it's not necessarily someone that, you know, is a big name. Like even Lewandowski scored goals in the Bundesliga, but he wasn't a massive name before he arrived at Bayern Munich. Sure, he scored goals at Borussia Dortmund, but they created that star. They created that animal inside the box there. And if you go back through history, notoriously what they've done is they've brought in proven goal scorers in their league. Now they're thinking outside the box. They're trying to bring in players who are not from the league. Sadio Mane is a great example of that. He's not in a great run of form. He's a terrific player. I couldn't understand his move away from Liverpool whatsoever. But now you're seeing the fans are not happy with Sadio Mane. I think he scored 5 goals in his first 11 games, right? And he hasn't scored any goals in his last 5 games. So he started off well, but now the goings get tough. Normally you turn to Lewandowski or your hot goal scorer. Mark my words. Mark my words. Put it down right now. What they're going to do, and I know for sure, the CEO of Oliver Kahn has already come out and said it. We stand by Julian Nagelsmann, Nigel, so they're not firing him. Mark my words. They're going after a striker. They're going after a hot striker who is world-class, who is potential of being world-class, or is a proven world-class goal scorer. And the two that come to my mind, okay, and you can call me crazy, and because I already predicted that Bayern would get knocked out of the Champions League, crazy enough, but I knew there was a problem, clearly proven in the Bundesliga. The two players who stand out to me, Harry Kane. They could get Harry Kane because they will go for him. They've got all the money in the world, Bayern Munich. They just need to pull the trigger and go get him. It's an opportunity for Harry Kane to go and potentially win the Champions League with a club like Bayern Munich. Nigel's smiling at me. But the other one I like, and Nigel, this will drive you absolutely crazy, but
I'm listening.
Dusan Vlahovic at Juventus, I think, is a wrong fit for Juve, but he might just be the right fit for Bayern Munich. Thoughts?
I would give you the floor with that one. I will give you a little round of applause for that. The Harry Kane one, I think, is going to be a tough one. I agree with you. They've got all the money in the world.
Why is it tough? Why?
It's going to be a hard persuasion to get Harry Kane to leave Tottenham to go to Bayern Munich. Because at the same time, let's be real. Manchester United still in need of an old school striker as well. Manchester United are a club that still need that number 9. Regardless, they need that as well. And he's already been linked to them. Obviously, City's out the window now. They've got Haaland, who's an absolute beast right now. Maybe you could say Bayern Munich took the eye off the prize.
Which project do you think? Nigel, which project do you think is more attractive if you're a Harry Kane in terms of where it's at now? Right, come January, if they went out and said we're going to spend both blank checks, we're going to spend.
I can't speak for Harry Kane, and it goes to what Ian and I had a conversation a while back, and probably Heath. We're more open to go out there and travel, to go out there and play. Harry Kane, I don't know him personally, but would he be looking at Bayern Munich to say, look at this historic club playing in the Bundesliga, scoring goals here, playing Champions League? Or would he be a player that wants to keep the comforts of being English, playing in England? And if I can't go to a Manchester United or one of those teams, I'm just going to stay here at Tottenham. You know, that's what he's got to look at. I think for me, Ian's right. That would be very attractive if you're Harry Kane, because he's going to get financially rewarded anyway. He's playing for one of the great historic clubs in world football. It's not just it's world football, the history that comes by in Bayern Munich, and he can go there and make a fantastic name for himself.
No, he can win. It's not just about money, Nigel. He can win. If you look at Harry Kane's owners, what does he want? He needs to start winning. He's got to go to a club where he can win something. And at Bayern Munich, you've got a possibility of winning the Champions League every single year because they'll spend, but you've got the possibility of winning the treble every single year.
Heath, there's something about Bayern that gets Ian going.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, Sadio Mane, you can just see why. Like he's Sadio Mane sitting back going like, you know what? This whole winning the Premier League thing is pretty tough, and winning the Champions League, this is a lot of work. I might go somewhere. At least one of these things is guaranteed. The other one's like on the fence if we do things right. I mean, you can see the reasoning to go into Bayern. It is a bit of a head scratcher for someone like him. But man, imagine being able to do it with a lot less stress of being in a Liverpool or competing with 3 other teams that you can't control. It's got to have some attraction to it because no one's going to beat Bayern even in the Bundesliga this year. It's not going to be Union Berlin that finishes on top. It might be Borussia Dortmund, but I really don't. I see them hitting that run of form where it's 15 weeks straight, 3 points every week, maybe a couple midweek 3-pointers, and now they run away again, and that's how it ends.
Yep, we got to move on. Producer Dest is pushing us on here. Great topic of discussion about how the mighty have fallen in Bayern Munich. There's something wrong with them there. So please feel free to join in the conversation. Let us know in the comments what you think about Bayern Munich and are they going to win the Bundesliga this year? What is your thoughts on Julian Nagelsmann? Please drop us a little comment. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing to everything we're putting out there as well. The discussion is over about Bayern Munich. Their next game is against Leverkusen. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll have a look at La Liga and the Madrid Derby. And of course, we'll take a deeper dive into the Premier League.
The UEFA Champions League. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. While Mbappe shines in the city of lights, Benzema's racking up the hat tricks, and the Reds want more magic in Liverpool. This ain't amateur hour. This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live on Paramount+.
Well, please don't forget that CBS Sports is your home for the 2022-23 UEFA Champions League, UEFA Europa League, and UEFA Europa Conference League group stages, with Paramount Plus streaming every match live and to complement the best club competitions in the world. Woo-hoo-hoo. We also post a wealth of premium soccer documentaries, including Destination Paris, which follows journalist Guillaume Balaguer's path through the Europe, and of course the 2021-22 UEFA Champions League season, culminating with the final in Paris. Balaguer's travels detail Ukrainian club Shakhtar Donetsk, their experiences amid ongoing war. Check out Destination Paris and the entire Champions League season on Paramount Plus. All right, welcome back everybody to Qué Golazo. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Please make sure you join in the conversation. Ian Joy with Nigel Reo-Coker and Heath Pierce with you. The Madrid Derby took place, and we would like to focus on the football before we get into some of the dirty details ahead of this game. But we got to talk about the game. Nigel, I know you were all over it. It was a big win for Real Madrid and some terrific goals to follow suit.
Fantastic win, and again, it's kind of like you were still looking at Real Madrid where they're not playing at 5th gear. They're still playing in that 1st and 2nd gear. They're surviving, doing okay. But when it comes to that moment of quality that's needed, they put it in the back of the net. And you look at both goals. I think I'm not just going to talk about the goals and the players. You talk about Vinicius Jr., obviously. You talk about Rodrigo and Verdi. Fantastic. You look at those players. But again, one of the players that I said, and we discussed this another time, Ian, about Tchouaméni. What a fantastic ball he played. Stop laughing. That's like, listen, if you go on the pronunciation on YouTube, it is Tchouaméni. That's how some people pronounce it. You can laugh all you like. That is how some people pronounce it.
I'd like everybody out there who are watching along on this live to let us know in the comments if Nigel is pronouncing Tchouaméni's name correctly or not.
Anyway, back to the topic of conversation. What a fantastic ball he played for the first goal. And for me, I look at the ability that this young man possesses. And obviously, there's talk now about Paul Pogba maybe not being fit or making the World Cup. When you have a player like that playing out Real Madrid, I think you can not worry about Paul Pogba because that kid is the real deal. And it goes again about the scouting network, about clubs having a structure. And for me, I have to give credit to Real Madrid for the structure that they have in place because the recruitment they've done this year, the mix they've got of young and old players, the talent is fantastic. But for me, the star man today is that magician Modric. Luka Modric is still the man that controls that Real Madrid team. He was absolutely fantastic. People might not see a lot of what he does, but for someone who's played in that midfield role, I see how important the passes he picks, the timing and his positioning, and how he controls that whole flow of game. and it is just fantastic to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, the other thing that I kind of like about just where Real Madrid is at is they've just allowed their young stars to become stars over time, right? We put the pressure, the media puts the pressure, the transfer fee puts the pressure on all these guys. But to see Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, other young players in this team come in and know that it's not just like, hey, you need to prove this today or tomorrow or you're out. They're building on these guys. And so there's clearly some sort of protection they're putting into these players that we're not seeing them fall off or seeing just flashes of them and then they end up somewhere else. We're seeing them bloom or blossom under Ancelotti, under this type of club. And I think that's rare in a club this size that we've seen in the way the modern game is, right? When there was loyalty and players stayed at clubs longer, that's different. But now a transfer fee comes and it's like, give him a couple weeks and now you need to start producing, right? Lewandowski didn't score in his first couple games. People were like, is he good enough to play at Barcelona? Like that's what starts happening when you're these star players. But for Vinicius Jr., much slower start than you expect. Rodrigo, another super talented world-class player, to have that protection and that trust and that understanding and support, I think is really important to what they're building there, because they are the Galacticos. You usually don't think about them in the vein of like giving young players a ton of chances to prove themselves, but it seems like they've modernized a bit as well and have built something that I think players want to be playing for, whether you're old and you're Kroos or you're Modric or you're a young player coming through the ranks.
We are discussing the Madrid derby. Real Madrid winning by 2-1 thanks to goals from Rodrigo and Valverde. Hermoso pulled one back in the 83rd minute. But Rodrigo getting his third goal of the season in La Liga, actually third game in a row that he scored a goal. So impressive from him. But as you mentioned, Heath Pierce, if you look at the ages of these young superstars, I mean, Vinny Jr., 22 years old, Valverde, 24, Rodrigo's only 21 years old. Then you've got Chalmeni, who's 22 years old. It's safe to say, Nigel...
Is that the same player that Nigel was saying? That's
Chalmeni, yeah, Chalmeni, same thing.
Right?
It doesn't matter.
I just want to know who's right. I'm getting confused myself. I don't know which player we're talking about anymore.
Stick with Nigel, it's all right.
Nigel, it's safe to say that Real Madrid's future is in great hands. I mean, there's no Karim Benzema there today, and of course, it didn't look like they needed a Karim Benzema because these young superstars, they're flying high with confidence right now. And even though it was controversial coming into this game, these superstars, they shone brightly once again.
Yeah, I mean, Real Madrid are providing the stage, and these guys are really taking the limelight. They're not scared to perform. They're embracing it, and they really look like they're a team that's together. There doesn't seem to be any egos. It really is a team effort. Whenever you see a team perform like that, and I'm sure you and Heath can add to that, that stems from the manager. Mm-hmm. We've got to give a lot of credit to Carlo Ancelotti there, because that kind of superstar stardom team that you have, and when you see the togetherness in there, the unity, even when they're playing, that comes from management. And you talk about other teams, we can question about the unity in Paris Saint-Germain with the superstars that they have, but you don't see that in Real Madrid. And I think collectively, with the recruiting that they've done, if they keep these guys together, which I'm sure they are, because why would you leave Real Madrid to go to any other club in the world? For a good couple of years, they're going to be dominating La Liga and Champions League for a long time to come, barring they all stay healthy. My thing is, just like Ian made predictions about Bayern Munich, I will not be surprised if Mbappe ends up in Real Madrid next year. Because I think that is just the missing piece. If they get Mbappe to that, I think all other teams could really start to looking for a magical code to be able to take Real Madrid away from the Champions League. Because
do you think that happens, Heath Pierce? Do you think that happens? Mbappe comes?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that has to happen at some point. It's inevitable. When and who can write the biggest check? I don't know. If this global inflation kicks in and lowers the price tags of everyone, maybe they can go quicker. But it's inevitable. I just don't see how somebody like Mbappe doesn't go for himself for a bigger challenge or something different, and that the PSG project doesn't hit some sort of wall along the way that they're going to have to make some tough decisions that might not make the fans happy, but ultimately needed to give the club its best chance of success in the future.
You're watching Qué Golazo, Ian Joy with Nigel Reo-Coker and Heath Pearce with you. Antoine Griezmann started, believe it or not, he started for Atletico Madrid today. Tomorrow on Qué Golazo, we'll be discussing his contract situation with Fabrizio Romano. Cannot wait to hear what Fab's got to say about this Antoine Griezmann situation. I can only imagine that Fabrizio knows every single detail about his contract. So excited to pick that one up. But before we move on to talk about other games, can we please just discuss the ridiculous comments that were directed at Vinicius Jr. and his dancing goal celebrations? In case you missed it, I'm going to just repeat what I've been reading. Obviously, this was put out in every single news format. I'm going to repeat the words, and for some people out there, it might affect you, it might harm you, it might hurt you, but I've got to say it. So here we go. So while appearing on Spanish TV on Friday, Pedro Bravo, a leading agent and president of the Association of Spanish Agents, compared Vinicius Jr.'s dancing celebrations after scoring to the behavior of a monkey, arguing that the forward was not respecting his opponents and, in quotations, I say, should stop playing the monkey. When you score against a rival, if you want to dance samba, you go to the Samba Drome in Brazil. Here, what you have to do is respect your colleagues and stop playing the monkey, he said, end quotes. Now, the support for Vinicius Jr. since then has been truly amazing, as it should be. And having played in Germany for 5 years for St. Pauli and a club that fights discrimination and racism across the board, this hurts my soul. And to see these types of comments still freaking existing in today's age, it's just absolutely mind-blowing to me. I think Vinicius Jr. has handled this situation incredibly well. Such an impeccable human being. And as far as I'm concerned, he should be dancing on and on and on and on to prove a point as well. Nigel Reo-Coker, your thoughts on the whole situation?
I mean, I honestly, and it burns me up inside that this is something that I could really go on about for so long, but I don't. And I think it's just easy just to simplify it. For me, that's all about race. There's nothing else that comes from that kind of statement and comment, because you can dance samba anywhere. You can dance samba anywhere in the world. I've seen white players score goals and dance, and it's never been an issue. But this is directed at Vinicius Jr. You make it about dancing samba, go dance in the Samba Drone. It has nothing to do with it. What he's done is he's planted a seed for all the clubs in Spain to target this young man now. Now, every game he plays for Real Madrid, every stadium he goes to, he's going to be racially abused. I think it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that La Liga haven't made a statement, that the Spanish FA haven't made a statement to kind of defend Vinicius Jr. And for me, I just want to say to Vinicius Jr., come to the Premier League if they don't want you to dance samba in La Liga, because the Premier League, you're more than welcome to dance, do whatever you want when you score goals. Come and celebrate, and you'll be welcomed with open arms and Brazilian flags everywhere. Because if they don't want you like that and they don't want to appreciate the footballer that you are, then you don't have no reason to stay there. But I think it's absolutely embarrassing. And it's this whole comment is made about race. And I know he's going to make an apology and say his words were misconstrued. It was no. These are grown men. They haven't been living under a rock and just come into 2022 to know what's acceptable in society.
On live television as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Live television.
You know the words that are coming out your mouth, and then to compare it to a monkey makes no sense. But just to say you're a racist, bigot, and out of touch idiot.
Yeah. And for him to come back and say what he meant is acting a fool. Well, you clearly knew, just say acting like a fool if that's what you really meant. Exactly. And that's not what you really meant. Like, to correct it that easy and say, oh, this is what I meant. Well, that's nowhere close to what you said. And on top of that, to back up Nigel's point that this is not just about the act in itself. It's the precedent that it set. And if anybody that's listening to this or watching this thinks that, oh, okay, that's exaggerated, that now everywhere he goes, they're going to feel like it's okay to do that. It happened today in the match, before the match, during the match. They were chanting at him. It immediately happened that now these fans come out from under the shadows, and they come out and they say, oh, now I get a free shot. I get a free shot for a bit. They're going to do it on the internet. There are all these people that have been forced to the sideline that have all this hate, have now been given the freedom to leverage this into their benefit, into their favor. And all it's done is put this pressure and a ridiculous amount of disrespect on this player for absolute no reason. And it's already started from the moment he made that comment to his very first match. It came out, and it's unacceptable.
It is unacceptable, and it's very, very difficult for many out there, and we do apologize. Obviously, I think having these types of discussions is so important to be able to kick racism out of the game and out of our world. So I think there's a segment later down the line where we could maybe all get together and discuss racism and make it a larger segment and really, share our own points of view and maybe some stories that we have from what we've dealt with ourselves individually. But it's certainly something that still looks like it's ongoing, not just in Spain, but in multiple countries, and it needs to be kicked out and kicked out soon. I will say this though, and great, well said, Nigel. Vinny Jr., he has handled this situation incredibly well, and may he dance on and on and on. Nigel, you want to say anything before we move on to the Premier League, or you want to get going?
No, I think we've covered it. Like you and I, all of us here, just frustrated things like this can happen still. And the fact of a grown man can make a statement knowing exactly what he means, and then when he gets called out for it, gives a half-assed apology. And again, the kid is celebrating a goal and dancing. He's not hurting anyone. He's enjoying the game he played. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You singled him out because of his race, because of his special talent, and because of how well he's doing. And it just doesn't sit well with you. And it is what it is. It's something that we need to get rid of. And I think I'm just disappointed at La Liga with having that star talent. They haven't released a statement straight away, because this happened yesterday and there's been no statement released by any of the governing bodies in Spain to say that they don't agree with this and they completely condone what he said. Condemn what he said.
Condemn. Yeah. Listen, you say grown man. This is not a man. This is absolutely not a man. We have to move on. Let's move on to the Premier League. We'll pick up the pace. We'll pick up the energy. And we'll pick up the happiness after that disappointment. Brentford, Arsenal, early kickoff. It was a terrific game, a terrific performance from Arsenal. Nigel, I know you're all over this one here. Arsenal go top of the Premier League with that win. They also had a very young kid make his debut in the Premier League today.
15 years old. 15 years old. He plays in the Premier League game, and I'm sure he's probably got school tomorrow. Wow. Highly rated. Came into the squad. It's true, though. He's 15 years old. Youngest ever. And then now he's got school tomorrow. But that's a lot of faith by Mikel Arteta. And he's highly rated at Arsenal. Didn't really get to touch the ball, I don't think, 2 or 3 minutes on. But forget all that. I mean, Arsenal. You got one touch?
One touch.
Oh, okay. There we go. The young lad there, 15 years old. I mean, this is another subject we could take on at another time, because obviously time's short with us, but Arsenal got the win. I think that game there for me was about revenge from last season, character building. Potentially, we've seen Arsenal lose games like the likes of Brentford, as we know. And I think for this was a real kind of important win for Arsenal. I wouldn't say it's a statement win, but it's an important win to see the progression under Mikel Arteta, to see if they can really be title contenders or finish in the top 4.
Are they though, Heath? Are they title contenders? Is this the real deal, Arsenal? I mean, you clearly seen the comments from Brentford boss Thomas Frank after the game. He said, and he believes that they are contenders. Are they?
I mean, I think at this exact moment they are. We've seen flashes of this in the past, but they continue to get better. This wasn't even their best 11 they put out on the field in this match. So it's showing you that they have depth. They have the ability to rotate. And a lot of that is how you manage a Premier League season, right? Knowing you're playing in multiple competitions, week in, week out, midweek as well. And then with each passing week that they get the result, they become more and more of a real contender. And this is a great one here. That nice kick about with the boys. Obviously, routine win, huge win for them. Yeah, and I think it was a fake account of the young boy that made a debut, but somebody made the account of him saying nice kick about with the boys as well. Nice to get a little kick about with the boys. So some good banter to come out of this one, but amazing to see a young player, a young star have that type of belief or even composure to step in. He didn't obviously do much, but for a club to bring him into that environment, it's going to do wonders for him. And I think at this exact moment, I see a contender in Arsenal.
Hey, Nigel, before we move on to the Hammers, I want to discuss Gabriel Jesus. He was on the score sheet yet again for Arsenal. Am I fair to say that Gabriel Jesus fits better into Arsenal than he did at City? 4 goals, 3 assists. I mean, he's been probably the second most active player in the Premier League behind Haaland.
He definitely does. I think with me, when you look at Gabriel Jesus, I remember when he made his debut, I think the first game I saw him play was when he played West Ham away. And I looked at him, I was like, wow, this kid is absolutely frightening. So sharp, so energetic, works hard, had everything. And I thought this kid's going to be a problem, going to be a real problem in the Premier League. Obviously, it didn't work out. I wouldn't say it didn't work out, because I think he still did well at Manchester City. But when you're at Manchester City, you're playing under Pep Guardiola's system. Now he's at Arsenal. He's not as restricted or chained as he was at Manchester City. Now we're seeing the real Gabriel Jesus, and I think he's flourishing, and he's only going to go from strength to strength.
Well, next up for the Gunners is a home game to Spurs on October 1st. Let's move on to Everton against West Ham. Sorry, Nigel, I'm going to start with Heath Pearce right here because the Toffees got their first win of the season. West Ham remain in the relegation zone. Malpe got his first goal for Everton. Heath Pearce, correct result, would you say?
I mean, it's a huge result for Everton, considering that we all know when you've been in times where you feel like you're doing better or outperforming what your results are. They're a team that I don't know if it's 3, 4, 5 games they're unbeaten. Everton were all draws going into that point, but when those draws lead to a loss or another loss, then it all feels wasted, right? When you can convert that final one to break it into a win, that's a huge step forward. And while they're still towards the bottom of the table, I think that shows you that it's progress being made, or that perhaps those wins could have been, or that win or those draws could have been wins along the way, and that you're trending in the right direction as opposed to just surviving, and that's what's getting you a point each match. So overall, I think it's a step in the right direction for the club. Whether or not it was an all-out dominating performance, I'm not that convinced.
Nigel, we got to touch upon the Hammers, mate. What's going on? They spent $182 million. That's 160 million pounds. West Ham with 1 win. They've only scored 3 goals this season. What the freak is going on, man?
I'm worried for them. I really am, Ian. I think they really look flat. They look like they're low in confidence now. I think that loss there really has taken the wind out of them, and they just don't look like they've got the same energy. I think they played at such a high tempo, high pace, enthusiasm, everything the words you'd use to describe a good team last season. Mm-hmm. They took their eye off the Premier League a bit, concentrating on European glory. That didn't quite work out. Maybe it's a little bit of a hangover of the high they had last year. But the problem, and why I'm worried about them, Ian, is they're not performing well in the Premier League right now. They're not creating goals. They're not scoring goals. And also remember, they've still got Europe this season. So how much of a burden is that going to be? And the more they go without getting wins and building that confidence again, the longer and the tougher the season's going to be, because playing on the Thursday and Sunday, it's going to be very, very tough. And also, David Moyes doesn't like to change his team a lot. How long are these players that he continually picks going to have that energy to continue to play and perform? I think the game today was one in the midfield for me. I think Idris Gueye made a big difference for Everton. The energy that he has, comfortable to get on the ball, passing that ball forward.
Oh, he almost had one bad turnover, though, that almost cost him when they hit it.
Almost did. But he was good throughout the 90 minutes. He's got that real energy about him. And I think for me, the star performer for Everton is Iwobi. From the start of the season, he has been a real catalyst.
Looks like a different player, right? Doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%. He was fantastic again today.
Real quickly, I'm just going to let you know that the next 2 games coming up for West Ham, massive games coming up for them. They play Wolves and Fulham after the international break. I mean, Nigel, those are must-win games. You got to be quick here because we got to move on, but those are must-win games, right?
You've said it. I don't have to say anything else. You're 100%. When you're in this situation right now with the confidence, must-win games.
All right, let me run through the other results. Aston Villa got a 1-0 victory over Southampton. Nottingham Forest went down by 3-2 against Fulham. We did see a couple of postponements, but also on Saturday, we saw Manchester City and Erling Haaland once again get the victory, 3-0. Newcastle won, Bournemouth won. And then, of course, the 2 games we discussed just a moment ago. Before we move on, let's just touch upon Hueng-min Son real quickly. They dropped him. He scored a hat-trick in the second half. Correct decision or not? We talk about Tottenham-Leicester. Tottenham got that 6-2 victory, but Hueng-min Son came in the second half, scored a hat-trick. Correct decision?
Go on, Heath.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, he was saying that he hasn't been in the best of form. His finishing hasn't been great, but he's had the support and he knew he would get out of it. He knew he was creating chances. And so to be given that opportunity and to reward that, he seems to be one of the few players that consistently seems to be, his self-reflection or self-awareness is close to probably where he's at, that he says, okay, I'm overlooked for this one. I get my chance to come in. I'm going to prove myself. And he knew the goals would come. And so it all sort of came together. Obviously, in hindsight, it's easy to say that after a hat trick, but the attitude was right. And I think he was the assessment of himself of saying, I haven't been at that level in terms of being clinical and being at the level that you've seen me before. And therefore I've left myself exposed to being dropped in the lineup. And, when he got his chance and I think he rewarded the club, obviously all of those goals in the second half were Spurs goals, right? I think it was, they went 2-2 they went into half at 2-2.
Yep.
Yes, it was. I think for me, he was always going to come good. I said it to Ian. I said he's always going to come good. However, Conte managed that situation. He managed it the right way. I personally think if they kept him in, it wouldn't have been the wrong thing to do. I think it would have still been fine to do it. But obviously, Conte felt if he took him out and
I don't know, Nigel. Bit of a wake-up call, I think, today.
I wouldn't say it was a wake-up call, if I'm honest. I
No?
just think that, I don't think that it's one of those ones where it's a bit of reverse psychology. Oh, he's on the bench, he's going to be wound up and angry. No, his ability's there. He just hadn't gone into the back of the net. You know what it's like when strikers tell you it's until they get that first goal, then everything, all the weight comes off their shoulders, and then they start scoring more and more. I think that's what it was. He just needed that first goal, regardless if he started the game or he was a substitute or come on. Once he got that first goal, he's going to get back to his best.
Well, it was certainly an interesting first half. Tielemans opened to score in 6 minutes in before Harry Kane equalised 2 minutes later. Eric Dyer got Tottenham 2-1 ahead before at halftime. James Maddison scored an absolute banger into the top corner. Second half, as you pointed out, Heath Bentancur and then Hueng-min Son with a hat-trick rounded things out. A quick stat before we touch upon Leicester City. Tottenham 17 points from their 7 Premier League games this season is their joint best record at this stage of a campaign, level with the 2016-17 season when they finished as runners-up to Antonio Conte's Chelsea side. So a good start for Tottenham Hotspur, but not a good start for Brendan Rodgers at all. I mean, his post-game comments were absolutely unbelievable. Can I read them out to you real quickly? Whatever their decision is, I will always respect it. The owners will do what they feel they need to do. I'm not daft. I know football, and the last 6 games don't make great reading, but I have every confidence the team can push on and climb up the table. I come in every day and do my work, but you've got to win games. I understand the frustrations of the supporters, and I cannot hide from that. It is my responsibility. It would cost about 10 million to sack Rodgers. He's got a contract till 2025. What would be the right decision, Heath, for Leicester City to make?
I'll tell you, it is very easy to be humble when you got 10 million sitting in your back pocket, going like, I got to do the job. And if they want to let me, it's not like it's that, if it was an at-will employment, I'll tell you, you're not going to be talking like that in the press. But when you got that when you got that protection, but look, a lot of it's going to come down to it. First half, solid, 2-2 into the half. You go into the second half, they can't find a way. Their defense is struggling right now, and those are things that you can improve. It's not like they're Norwich of last season, or where you just see a complete lack of quality. There's decision making, there's integration into the team. Still, there's a number of things they can improve that will shore up this back line. But how much better it gets, I'm not really sure right now. So whether or not he's sort of hit his expiration date in terms of the impact he can have, and you've got to hand that baton off, I think we'll find out by the end of the year. I think we'll have an indicator of where that's at.
Nigel, you want him fired, don't you?
I don't want him fired. I just think that you've got to be smart about these situations. Like Heath said there, they've got the players there. It's individual errors. It's not panic stations yet. Give him 3 or 4 more games, see how it goes, read the body language of the players and the performance, then you'll know what to do. But give him 3 or 4 more games before that decision.
Well, because we haven't been able to shut Nigel Rio-Coker up, this show has gone on extremely long, so it's going to have to be a very short Bundesliga wrap-up here. I'm going to talk through some of the scores real quickly. Borussia Dortmund, Schalke, Revier Derby. Dortmund got the 1-0 lead thanks to Moukoko, the youngest ever goal scorer in the Revier Derby. Not good news for Marco Reus, though. He was taken off with an injury. It looked like an ankle injury, and if it's serious, he could miss the World Cup, which would be a disaster for Marco Reus. But Borussia Dortmund go top with that result. One of the reasons why Borussia Mönchengladbach 3 against Leipzig 0. Leipzig brought back down to earth Marco Rose. Great win for Gladbach. Gladbach now move up to 6 in the table. And the leaders in the Bundesliga is Union Berlin against Wolfsburg. Jordan Sabachu, or should I say Jordan Pefok, or as the commentator said today, just Jordan was on the score sheet once again, as was Becker, their player of the month last month in the Bundesliga. Union remain top of the Bundesliga. They're unbeaten in the last 14 Bundesliga games. Real quickly, Heath Pierce, Jordan Pefok, crazy situation, not in the squad. What's up with that?
Huge omission. Obviously, we've continued to see Greg Berhalter go more and more into either you fit my system or you don't. I don't think there's any question marks. I still think he makes the World Cup squad. Otherwise, it'll be really shocking. Now, the fact they didn't get brought in, that's a little bit worrying to me. But you know the kind of player you're going to get out of him. You know the scenarios you're going to put him in. He's not going to be your starter. He plays in a 2-striker system. He's not a big pressing forward. This team likes to play in transition and press higher up the field. So he doesn't necessarily fit, but he is a circumstance type of striker. And you know he can score goals, and he's in a better form than I would think any at the level that he's playing at than any striker in the pool right now. So you're going to have to make room for him on that plane to Qatar, and you're going to have to use him come final 20, final 15, final 10 minutes, whenever you need him to go in, be busy, hold up the ball, get in the box, and use that form to get you a result.
Top of the league on Yumberlane. It's fantastic to see. Nigel Reo-Coker, Heath Pearce, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today on Qué Golazo. And thank you so much to everybody out there for listening to the show. Please take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are also available as video. So subscribe to us on YouTube. Visit YouTube. Just want to say before we head out of here, Heath Pearce, In Soccer We Trust, has been doing phenomenally well. Where can people catch the show next time? When are you guys back on again?
Yes, 10 a.m. tomorrow. That's 10 a.m. Monday Eastern time. We will be live. Obviously, we've got the it's an international break, so the schedule could be changing throughout the week. But normally Mondays 10 a.m., Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Sorry, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then noon Pacific time on Thursdays, and then Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific time as well. Sorry, Nigel experienced these time zone changes for the first time when he headed west and was like, this doesn't make any sense, you know. It still makes no sense to me. So I literally just made people more confused. So we probably lost listeners for tomorrow, just throwing out random time. But that is 10 a.m. Pacific time, live tomorrow on YouTube, on In Soccer We Trust YouTube handle.
Guys, awesome stuff as always. Nigel, love you. Heath Pearce, love you. Enjoy the international break. And we know it is the international break, but we'll keep these shows coming. So make sure you stick around. We'll be back for more very soon. See you tomorrow.